Hello, this is Miss Andrea with Not Another Homeschool Vlog. You have questions, I have tea. Let's go. So, this question is, when do you take your biggest break from bookwork? Many families do other things during the months of November and December. So, is that a good time to take a break um, from schoolwork? What's the best time to pull back from the bookwork and take a break? Um, and I guess, look, do what you want. Like, literally do what you want. It's so often that homeschoolers go into the message boards or contact veteran homeschoolers for permission to take time off. No, honey, you are in charge of your homeschooling 100%. So, um, in my family, we didn't take any breaks, which is probably why my children graduated early. The younger years, we didn't take any breaks. I would just keep homeschooling all summer, and then they would notice that summer was almost over and it was almost time to go back to their homeschool co-op, and that we were still doing homeschooling work. And they would say something, and I'd be like, okay, well, you can take these next 2 weeks off. So we'd take like 2 weeks off at the end of the summer, um, and we'd go light um, for like winter break, which was mid December to early January. So, like 3 weeks, we go light. And honestly, the rest of the summer, we went light also. And when I say going light, I mean because they had co op classes in history and the arts. We weren't doing those during breaks, of course. So, I just made them at home do math every day for the rest of your life, and reading. So we never really took full breaks, but we'd scale back from 4 to 5 subjects to 2 subjects at different times when everyone needed a break during the holidays, during the summer. But honestly, I didn't see any reason to ever completely stop learning. But I am not your homeschool advisor. Um, I am here to give you advice. And my advice is to always be learning. But if you need to travel or do whatever you need to do, by all means, switch it up. This parent is saying that they are overwhelmed and feel like they can't home their child anymore. They have deschooled, and the child is just literally giving them hell every day. And they're thinking of putting them back in public school. What should they do? Um, we're seeing that a lot right now because a lot of families were kind of forced into homeschooling because of COVID schooling. So they didn't have time to adequately even consider homeschooling. It was more of a like knee jerk reaction. And so the kids never imagined they would homeschool. The parents never imagined they were homeschooled. We have a lot of people who are just feeling really awkward. It's not planned out. The parents haven't had the time to really plan. Like before I homeschooled, I planned for 6 months. I knew what I was going to do when I set a plan, and so homeschool parents these days don't have that. But whether you always thought you were going to homeschool or whether you decided you were going to homeschool last year and it's not going well, you, of course, are going to need to make some adjustments. Um, for me, when I needed to make some adjustments, it was as my children approached middle school. I noticed that they were becoming passively lazy. And so, they were less eager to turn in assignments that I had asked for. They were less eager to finish their work. They'd taken to hiding workbooks behind the dresser. I always found it. Um, and they just weren't real enthused. And I made a decision in myself and I said, well, I can be their teacher or I could be their parent. And I chose to be their parent. But that does not mean that I stopped homeschooling. What I did was I knew that the homeschool program that they were in for the arts also had academic classes. So I went and enrolled them in those homeschool academic classes. They were one day a week, and there was a ton, so much more homework than I ever gave them. that was due every week. And after 2 years of that, they came back and said to me, "Can we go back to you teaching us?" Ta-da. And and they accelerated and, you know, still graduated early and did great. Sometimes, as a parent, if you want to continue homeschooling, you need to bring in someone other than you to help you get the work out of your kids, whether that be a series of tutors, whether that be a homeschool professional, whether that be the local homeschool co op. And that way, they're also seeing friends on a regular basis and having some fun. So, um, and honestly, I get that a lot. I get parents who tried to homeschool show up at my door with kids who they deschooled, and they deschooled them for too long. Deschooling is when you just let them not do anything to get that schooliness out of their system. Sometimes you do that too long, the kids are like, "Oh, I don't have to do anything ever," and they won't. So don't do that if you can avoid it. But just pull someone else into the equation. And if homeschooling was never something you wanted to do, and you really feel like they need to go back to school, let go of the guilt. Let go of the guilt. Do what you need to do for yourself and your kids. So that's all I have to say about that. Oh, my son is in third grade, and I'm aware of state testing guidelines, but truthfully, I want to test him for my own peace of mind to make sure I'm not failing him. Should I test twice a year or just at the end of the year? Am I being extra for wanting to test him now? No, you're fine. You're fine. When I was a young homeschooler and I had a couple of mentors um, who helped me get started homeschooling, well, we split ways pretty quickly because I was like, "What about testing?" And they were like, "Just don't do it. We don't test our kids. The government can't tell me what to do." And if you feel that way, okay, but don't just straight out tell someone else that without giving good reasoning and your reasoning behind it and all of that. But other homeschoolers, if you're mentoring homeschoolers, allow them to do what they need to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Um, I I was a tester. I was absolutely a tester. So in my state, the law is that you have to test every 3 years, um, beginning in third grade. Test every 3 years, beginning in third grade. Um, and people think that that specifically means that you have to test in grade third, sixth, ninth, and 12th. That's not really true. You have to test that. You have to test your children at least once in 3 years. So if your kids were in public school in second grade, then you don't really have to test again until fifth, and then you can test again in seventh. What I did was my kids left public school at the end of first and third grade. I tested at the end of that next year, so I tested at the end of second and fourth. Um, and my daughter had accelerated that year, so at that point they were third and fourth. Um, and I did I test every summer? Yeah, I tested every summer until ninth grade, at which point I just had them take the SAT because that counts as a nationally normed test. And the reason I tested often is because I wanted to know if they had retained everything that someone in their grade level should have learned and retained. And if I saw that they didn't, then, and that was usually in math or language arts, then that was our summer school work that I assigned so that my kids would be up to par. Some people just don't believe in testing at all. Some people are just Finland, and they find testing offensive and they feel that testing stunts the children. Um, Under a certain age, I would agree. But I also feel that testing shouldn't just be for the state to make sure that you're homeschooling according to law. Testing should be so that you make sure your children are retaining the information you need to retain so they can move forward with success and don't tap out. So that's my opinion about testing. So to a parent who wants to test once a year, test once a year. I like the California Achievement Test, and I use Family Learning. I used Family Learning Organization. There are other um, testing services that test online. I had my niece tested last year through Family Learning Organization. She did really well. Um, or you can just do in the fall, what you can do to not have like a big test every fall is a lot of the math curriculums will have a, my battery's dying. A lot of the math curriculums will have a entry test. And so you can give them that entry test to make sure that they're ready for that math level. And that also tells you if they have any holes. And then you can go ahead and fill those holes. And I wouldn't give that entry test in the fall. I would give it in the spring so that we could spend the summer filling those holes if we need to fill those holes. So that's why I test, to make sure that the children are retaining. Not to score them, not to punish them, but to fix any holes that we have in their learning.